Hi, everybody. Welcome. Welcome to Impossible Live. Welcome back if you're joining us again. And if you're joining us on replays, hey, how are you doing? But I'd love to, besides welcoming you, to introduce you to our amazing dynamic guest today, who I had the pleasure to meet during Jeremy and Steve Erickson's Speaker Connections.
Yeah,
So a cool networking event that they host twice a month so that speakers and people who are hosting events can kind of connect and discover each other. So we discover as speakers opportunities to speak. We discover maybe events or summits that might be of interest, and others get to meet amazing people. The second I met Nicoline, the second I met her, I knew I needed to invite her as a guest for Impossible Live. So I am delighted you are here and delighted you're joining us. And I'd love to give you a little bit of time just to let us and our listeners know a little bit more about you, some of your gems, and where they can find you to kind of stay in touch.
great. Well, thank you so much for having me, Mel. It's really a pleasure to be here. And I share the feeling that the moment we met, we could like talk for hours, which is what we're not going to do tonight. But for me, it's night anyway. So I'm based in the Netherlands. That's a good start. My name is Nicoline Huizinga. Don't try to pronounce my last name because it's very Dutch. And I am an intuitive business mentor and a human design coach. I help mainly solopreneurs to be their unapologetic self. And one of my tools is human design to make that happen so they attract their ideal clients and be incredibly successful by running a business on their own terms and based on their human design. And basically, where people can find me is either here on LinkedIn or on Instagram or Facebook, and on my website, of course, which is my first and my last name, NicolineHuizinga.com.
That is amazing, and a warm welcome to our guests who are joining us today. Anna is popping in, and which is fantastic. Anna and I met thanks to another human design coach. So Anna's in the house with great energy, and
Great.
also amazing Louisa of Mastering Cultural Differences has joined us also. So thanks all of you for popping in. And Cynthia, how are you? But thank you so much for joining us. And what I love too is, as Nicoline says, and I really appreciated it. I had a coach introduce me, a business coach, introduce me to human design probably now almost 5 years ago, and it didn't stick.
Mhm.
It was somebody who was a business coach, and then I ran into human design again and people discussing it during Darla Ledoux's retreat and Go Rich. Hey, Clarine, how are you? Welcome, welcome. And what I love is I didn't pay any attention to it in the beginning. And I didn't realize what another valuable tool set it was for the toolkit. So I love, as we were talking about, today's topic of be yourself, and Clarine says it very well about appreciating the power of authenticity, um, and really about on the focus of us being ourselves. I laugh because people use the word authentic so much, and I think for myself, I had a hard time tapping into that in the beginning because we're taught, people in business, women in business, the entrepreneur, know who you are, you know, be able to describe who you are. And this question that Nicoline helped us come up to is really, I think, kind of where I started, trying to take a deep dive to figure out who I was as a person, who I was as an entrepreneur,
Yeah.
Did that match with who I was, as an employee, as a team member? But I love this question you helped us come up with today, which was, who are you at your core?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think especially in the online business world, people talk a lot, like you said, about authenticity. And many of us have heard, like, oh, be yourself. But who are you at the core? Especially when you have just made the transition from working in a corporate job to being a business owner. It's really hard to define, like, who am I? And I think human design is just one of the best tools, I would say, to help you reconnect to who you are at the core. Because when we're born, we are a certain design, and over the years when we grow up, we get so much conditioning going on that we unlearn who we actually were at our core.
Mhm.
And I think, yeah, and that's why I love human design so much. And like you said, the first time I got in touch with human design, I was like, yeah, interesting, not sure. So I had the very same thing like you. And after like 6 months, I was like, oh my God, this is spot on. Wow, this is such an amazing tool. And it really helped me. First of all, it helped me to really get to know myself again and to identify the moments where I'm really fully aligned with my design and the moments that I'm out of alignment. And then it's like, okay, now I get it. And I need to go back to my design. And that's of course like an ongoing journey, because human design is a journey of a lifetime. It's impossible to master everything there is to know about human design like overnight. It's impossible. But for so many people, when I do a reading with them or we work with it in their business, and they are like, oh my goodness, first of all, it's like you're inside my head. And second, what people tell me is, you finally gave me permission to be myself. And that's
Mm.
the biggest gift that I think we can give ourselves, that we are ourselves and our unapologetic selves, and use that in our business, and that is sustainable. So yeah, I fully agree with you. It's one of the best tools. There are many great tools out there, but many of them are based on questions, which means that we can manipulate the outcome
Mm.
in a way. And I think human design is like based on your date of birth, time of birth, and place of birth. And there's no manipulating that. So yeah, it's a great and accurate tool that really helps us to answer the question, like, who are we at our core? And then you can start building from there, and start growing your business from there.
I love it too because in the beginning I thought like a design, something we create. And as you're saying, right? Like something just like out of the blue.
Yeah.
It's a creation, it's a work of art. And I think the reminder is
Yeah.
each of us as unique individuals on the planet, learning, for myself, learning that part of the design was conscious, perhaps,
Mm,
and part was unconscious.
yeah.
What do you, for those who haven't had a chance to check out human design yet, how could we explain the conscious and the unconscious so that
All
our
right.
listeners get it?
Yeah. So first of all, what people need to do if they are not familiar with human design, first, I love the website mybodygraph.com, which is great to get your own body graph and your own design. And then you will see a picture of 9 triangles and squares, and they will be either colored or white or a combination of that. And next to that, you will see a black line of little squares with numbers in it, and a red line of squares with all the same number. Well, not the same, but also with numbers in it. So the black line means that's the position of the planets on the day, time, and place that you were born. So that's basically, it's the position of the planets. The red one is the design 88 days before you were born. So it's the position of the planets again, but 88 days before you were born. And in human design, those 88 days before you were born, that's where your personality starts crystallizing. So the core of your personality is made 88 days before you were born. So often what I find when people come to me and they struggle with a certain element in their business or in their life in general, we can find the answer in the unconscious design, because the position of the planets in the unconscious design is often what we're not aware of, things that that may block us, that may hold us back, and we're not aware of it. So the black is most of the time we're aware of it, and especially when we grow older, we become more and more aware of it. But the red is like, you know, it's like an iceberg. So you see the tip of the iceberg, but there's a lot going on underwater. And that's what the unconscious design is all about. So when we start diving into the unconscious design, there are so many beautiful gems that we can discover. And of course, they will reveal hidden blocks and limiting beliefs and all of that. So that's more often than not, it's in the unconscious design. Oh, I can't hear you.
I love that, and especially how you're sharing that with us about the different levels of awareness. Because when somebody shared this with me, I was like, "What is this? And
Yeah.
how would I use this
Yeah.
possibly?" You know. But I think the gem of it is, as you're sharing it and encouraging us to do, I think if I had discovered it sooner as an entrepreneur, it has some keys towards our personal branding.
Yeah.
You know, because it's kind of a as you call it, the body graph is kind of a sculpture of us that we
Yes.
haven't necessarily shared with others. It's almost like, you know, it was designed before we emerged almost.
Yeah.
And the parts of that, and I think that part I really love from exploring it. And the first time when I really started paying attention to it was after, you know, I was hosting my first retreat and it was reintroduced to me. So I looked at it for a little bit. And then somebody brought it to me at a time when I really was tapping into my intuition. And we ended up having a conversation about money mindsets. There was something in my chart.
Mm.
The amazing spiritual coach who was reading it started talking to me about money mindsets. And I'm like, this was like in like the fourth quarter, you know, just before the new year, a time
Mm.
when, you know, people are suggesting, look at your goals, start forecasting, what are your
Yeah.
plans, you
Yeah.
know, and that was the mindset I think that kind of really started opening my eyes to it,
Mm.
that there was more value in it, you know, from that perspective.
Yeah. You know, it has so many layers, and I think that's also the confusing bit about human design, because there's so much information out there and people find it very hard sometimes to like decode their own design. And I always tell people, when you're new to human design, there are three things that I want you to focus on. It's your energy type. So whether or not you're a generator, a manifesting generator, projector, a manifestor, or reflector, it's all about your authority, so your decision-making tool, and your strategy. If you focus on these three elements when you're new to human design, you've covered like 70-75% already. And that's hard enough already, because there's a lot of information in your energy type, in your strategy, and in your authority. So, so before people start diving into like, oh, what's my conscious design? Oh, what's my subconscious design? Or what are my open and defined centers? Before people start doing that, I highly recommend to really go into, this is my energy type, this is my strategy, this is my authority. And once you've I won't say master it, but know a lot about that and start recognizing the moments when you're in alignment and out of alignment with your design and with your authority and strategy. That's already, you've gained so much already when you do that.
I think it's great because you're talking about our different types, and and I thought it was kind of interesting when looking at it. And hey, Della, how are you doing? Della, welcome. Della is joining us. Della says she's just starting to learn about human design,
Great.
and she's a manifesting generator.
Mm, that's just wonderful. So a many Jenny, as I always call them. So the manifesting generators are like 33% of the entire population. So together with generators who are 37%, so then you represent the generator type 70% of the entire population. So it's the majority. But and that's funny because the other day I spoke to someone who said, "Oh yeah, I found out I'm a manifesting generator. I wasn't interested because it's the majority. So I'm like anybody else." But I'm like, no, there are so many layers to your design. So as a manifesting generator, the really interesting bit is that you have this wonderful sustainable source of energy going on. So Della, that's like wonderful to have, and that's your sacral center. In your sacral center, you have this sustainable energy going on, which doesn't mean that a manifesting generator can do just anything and everything. They can, provided that whatever it is that they do, it lights them up. So for generators and manifesting generators, it's crucial that you do whatever lights you up. And the best way to do that is to ask yourself yes and no questions. So whenever you have defined a colored sacral center, when you look at your body graph, you'll see it's red. It's a red square, the second from the bottom. And when it's defined, you can ask yourself great yes and no questions like, do I really want to do this? Does it light me up? Does it make me happy? Is this the best moment to do this? And your sacral center will tell you. So you need to be, I would say, picky with your energy, even though you have a lot of energy, but you really need to be aware of it. So asking yourself those yes or no questions are really, that's really going to help you to make the right choices and to be able to tap into that endless source of energy.
Ah, that is so cool. That is so cool. And Clarine is saying, do whatever lights us up. That
Yes.
she loves us.
Yeah, it's so crucial because many people think that generators and manifesting generators cannot go into burnout, but they can. They can, even though they have this sustainable source of energy. But we really need to check in with ourselves, and preferably like every day, like where am I on the energy scale from 0 to 10? Where am I? And if it's below 5, it's really important to start questioning what it is that you do. Do you really like it? Is it lighting you up? Does it make you happy? Does it make your eyes shine? Because it's so important that we keep track of whatever makes our eyes shiny and happy. So, yeah, guard our energy as a generator and a manifesting generator. That's crucial.
Cool. And thanks so much, Anna, for popping in. Anna said,
Yeah. Yeah. So that's great. Yeah. So it's the yes and no questions, and then overthink the response. So, and that's a great question, Anna, actually, because then you're not working with your sacral center, but your head is taking over. So I'm curious, do you have a defined head or ashna? So the top 2 triangles, are they colored? Because it could be, and that's often the case, when we try to tap into our sacral, our head takes over because we're so conditioned to listen what our head is telling us. because the sacral will give you like a physical response. So when you ask yourself those yes and no questions, the typical yes response for a generator or a manifesting generator is the sound like mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Or if it's a no, it's like mm-mm. And you can feel it too in your body. So it's really crucial that you don't let your head take over, but really tap into the body. Like, what is your body telling you? Very often it's nonverbal. So it's like leaning in, or it's leaning backwards for a no. So leaning in is like a yes, and leaning backwards is a no. So, and then you have many, okay, so that's the thing. So when you have many open centers, there is a lot of energy from other people coming in, and you're reflecting and amplifying that. So, but it's crucial that you really stick with your sacral center and not get into the head. So a great way for people to really connect with the sacral center, first of all, is meditation. That is a great way to really get out of your head and out of other people's energy, but really get into your own. So what I highly recommend is meditation, journaling. That's another way to really connect to yourself and to your core. And then ask yourself those yes and no questions. Another technique that you could do is have someone else ask you those yes and no questions, but very quickly, like a speed series of questions, because then your sacral will answer on the spot instantly, because your head won't have time to just interfere, or any other center won't have time to interfere. So your sacral will be forced, between our quotes, to answer straight away. So have a business buddy or an accountability partner ask you the right yes and no questions. So the right yes and no questions could be, like I said, does it light you up? Do you really want to do this? And another one is to really add the time element. So is this the right moment right now to do this? Do I need to do it right now? Or would it be fine if I could do it next week or next month or next year even? So that could really help you, Anna.
I love what you're saying there. It's such a reminder, too, that, part of this, besides whether we have centers that are open or closed, that it really comes down to kind of an energy perspective. I found it kind of interesting this year, doing a lot of mental fitness work and more human design work, and an amazing chakra alignment course where Anna and I met, that it's just the desire, the reminder to stretch.
Yeah.
And the reminder, really, the check-in part, which sometimes we forget to do in situations where maybe we're under pressure. We need to make decisions quickly. I laughed recently in the last couple of weeks because people said, how much do you tune into your intuition? I said, like 99%, 99.8%. The 0.2% means I'm too tired to have realized that I went past, that gut check. And, so recently I laughed, two little things. And I was like, my intuition told me to do something else. And something, you're just going through, or maybe you're in a group situation where it's not an opportunity to speak. And you end up following, a direction or an insight, or it could be something so silly. And I laughed. The GPS in the car told me go one way, and my instinct said go another. And my instinct ended up being right.
Yeah.
And we laughed.
I love that. I love that. And the thing is, and that's the thing with our intuition, that it doesn't make any sense every now and again. And we are so conditioned to look for logic, to look for reason, to look for rational arguments that justify our decisions. So especially in business, when we get asked to do things and we just, our intuition is telling us, no, don't go there. But you don't find any logical arguments to explain why. then it's just enough to say, like, I don't feel it. It just doesn't feel right. That's enough for an argument to say, like, okay, this is the reason. It just doesn't feel right. That's enough. But especially in, in the business world, in the corporate world, people need like logic and they need rationality. But it doesn't work like that. Your intuition, your sacral center, they're talking to you in, first of all, in a very soft voice. Especially intuition, the splenic center in human design is like, it's a whisper. So sometimes it's very hard to hear. So we really need to take time to tap into it and to go with it, even if it doesn't make any sense. Because if you just continue logic, then at some point you'll find that you're out of alignment with your design. And that's, of course, you can always go back to being in alignment. But especially for generators, manifesting generators, when you start to feel frustration, you're out of alignment. So it's important to go back to strategy, authority, energy type, those three elements. And then you can reconnect to who you are at the core.
I love that. I am grateful to be surrounded by generators and manifesting generators.
Right.
Almost to the point where, as you were saying about the splenic authority, I didn't understand the authority part of it, that kind of gut check. And that, it turns out, is my authority. I'm supposed to keep following my gut. Otherwise, it ends up in a not so comfortable.
Yeah. And that's a huge difference
dialogue.
because I have emotional authority. So for me, there is no truth in the now. So I have emotional authority, which means that I have to sit out the entire wave of emotions. So after 2 or 3 days, things have become clear. But I have made so many mistakes deciding on the spot, like, yeah, I want to do this. And then the day after, I was like, why did I say yes to this? So that's the whole thing. When you don't know your authority and you don't use your authority, then you could end up in situations where you're like, I don't want to be here. So it's really important that you know your authority, splenic authority, ego authority, sacral authority, emotional authority, and start living that, because that is really going to help you make better decisions. So yeah, that's really helpful. So for you, it's very different than it is for me. So I cannot make any decisions on the spot. I need to think about things. So whenever people who are listening have emotional authority, your catchphrase from now on will be, can I get back to you about that? Because you need time. You need time.
I want to thank you so much, because many members of our family have also, I encourage them to run their charts, and not, that I'm keeping a list of them, because I so am not. This is not a degree. I'm grateful for Nicoline being here. I just wanted to learn how to use it. I think in the process of self-discovery,
Yeah,
or curiosity, and also, like you're saying, because sometimes too, in terms of questions, I've now learned, sometimes somebody asks me a question and I don't necessarily have an immediate answer, and they're like, "You're not paying attention to this." And I really am doing the gut check.
yeah,
And my family now knows, give me a minute.
yeah,
But the times when it is immediate, it's kind of, it can really be a gift. And in other cases, I had to learn to, like, check in twice,
yeah,
because sometimes when it's a maybe, and it becomes a yes, to really, as you're saying, to kind of check in on that process, whether it's somebody we decide to work with. And what Clarine is saying is, Clarine's got a great question for,
yeah.
yep.
Yeah, so and it's funny because I have spoken to a lot of twins over the past few months, And they all have the same question, like, oh, but I'm very different from my twin sister or my twin brother. And how does that happen? You know, the funny thing is, there is the one thing that starts is that whether we were born male or female, because whether you like it or not, boys and girls are raised in a different way, even though our parents try very hard. But boys and girls are raised in a different way. So that's where the conditioning already starts. And so then that's where the differences between us start, even though we have the very same design at the core, but that's where the differences start. So the conditioning kind of determines how different we become over the years. And then, of course, we have different experiences over the years. And it really depends on our design. How do we deal with whatever we encounter in life? And of course, there is no such thing as a blueprint of, okay, you have an open solar plexus, so this is how you deal with it. There is no, I would say, standard thing. So we all get our own experiences. So we all grow our own conditioning. And that's how we grow to be different, even though we have the same design. So, but it's fascinating. It's fascinating. And I don't have like 100% satisfactory answer to that yet, because I'm also in the process of finding out, like, okay, how does that actually work? But I think these are two elements that are crucial on how we are different from people who are born on the same time and the same date. So yeah, it's conditioning, it's how we were raised, it's culture. So yeah, so many elements are crucial for our conditioning over the years.
Which is one of the reasons, like we're saying also in terms of culture, and Louisa is maximizing cultural differences is her jam.
Mm.
But I crack up also because sometimes it's the location. I was speaking with a colleague who wasn't exactly sure. She was a twin. She wasn't
Mm.
exactly sure of the time that she was born. It gets a little hectic. So she
Yeah,
wasn't exactly sure of the time that she was born,
yeah.
and her parents moved around a lot. So she and her twin weren't sure about the location where they were born.
Mm.
I guess they were moving around kind of within certain general towns. But so for some reason, how, her birth certificate was, recording information. She's like, some of it came back like, almost like they didn't know, like, they didn't know, I don't think they didn't know her authority.
Mm.
Um, and I think, sometimes the not having the specific part, but as Louise is saying, can I get back to you about that? It, and I love that because it really tied into a master class that Louisa did recently about giving others time for
Yeah,
the answers based on our cultures, about where we're coming from. Your
yeah,
boss may want an immediate answer and you don't have one.
yeah, yeah,
But I think the opportunity becomes for the conversation to just express you would like more time to think about it. If
yeah,
somebody pushed you for your gut, I mean, I worked in the garment industry and we'd work, it was 60 to 70-hour weeks. And sometimes you were exhausted late at night and somebody would ask you a question. My boss would ask me how much longer it was going to take us to send the overseas instructions that we were working on.
yeah,
And I would say I am almost there. But what I learned was my boss was asking me because we lived in the same town and her amazing husband would come and pick us up and drive us
mm.
home. We also knew there was a
Wow,
train issue, at a certain hour,
yeah,
to get back home. But
yeah,
sometimes people are asking us questions and we're not sure of the frame
yeah,
from which
true,
the question's coming from, because we have different types.
yeah,
So I'm loving it from a family perspective because when my brother did his chart, we were at a point of really helping our parents age in place, and we were like, there was a lot of decisions,
Mhm.
a lot of paperwork that hadn't been completed on both ends.
Yeah.
And the thing I love is my brother's chart really helped me understand he is a manifesting generator. His superpower was kind of the power of now.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
he spent years working in restaurants, and, my sister-in-law is kind of like a chef behind the scenes, with many coordinated courses, and she's been
Mm.
cooking for days. So he's like the he's the super sous chef,
Yeah.
from those days. But if you needed a fork, he was there before you knew you needed it.
Yeah.
If your glass was low, he was about to refill it
Yeah.
and just double checking with you, that you weren't, changing from water to coffee or something.
Yeah.
But he would ask you, and you're like, oh, yes, oh, sure. But I think that need to check in kind of, and it our being ourselves, us trying to really tap into that sometimes the challenge is how we respond, whether we're at work, whether we're the leader, whether
Yeah.
we're the coach,
Yeah.
whether we're with family, whether
Yeah.
we're out with
Absolutely.
friends.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's funny that you say that because just a few months ago, I did a reading for a guy, and he turned out to be a projector. And he didn't have a great connection to his family anymore because they always called him lazy. And he was always, oh yeah, you're always sleeping, and you're always sleepy, and you're lazy, and da da da. But turned out that he was born into a family of manifesting generators, and he was the only projector in the family. And when you're the only projector who needs more rest, who doesn't have the defined sacral center, whereas the manifesting generators, they are like the energy bombs, and a projector really isn't. And it helped him to reconnect to his family because now he understood why they were always so energetic. And they finally understood why he needed much more rest. So, in a way, it restored their family dynamics. And I think that is just the best gift that you can have. And another thing that you said about the yes and no questions and the checking in, that just this morning I had lunch with a few ladies, and one of them explained that she did a lot of cultural work. So I can imagine, Louisa, this is very interesting for you too, especially Asian cultures don't say no. They just don't say no. So when you ask them yes and no questions, so when an external person asks them the yes and no questions, it's very hard for them because they hardly say no. So and that's cultural conditioning that we need to be aware of when we work with our human design, and we like, yeah, do the yes and no questions. Yeah, that's great. For us, it's great, but not for everyone. So it's really important to be aware of the differences and how culture creates a conditioning for us when we're working with our human design. But other than that, I think it's a great tool to really understand one another and to be able to collaborate better, to communicate better, and to be much more in alignment with each other. And that's my drive for doing this, that I really want people to understand one another better, and therefore we can work together better.
I absolutely love that. I think one of the things that was interesting when I first looked at my chart that I didn't understand is in my chart, it showed others that I was an explorer.
Mm.
And I always, as the daughter of a scholar, I always appeared as a kid to color within the lines. But the explorer was already there, always there when you have an opportunity to kind of reach out
Yeah.
and express. But I think one of the things I loved, Nicoline, in the process of our conversations was you have an amazing guide that kind of shares a little more about our types, about our strategies. It's kind of not necessarily a cliff notes, but in a fabulous glossary to kind of help us understand our charts
Yeah.
more. But I would encourage anybody also who's listening to us. I was delighted that Nicoline had like a an offer in her, featured section, I think, of her posts, to like just pop in and, to maybe check out how we can tap into being ourselves, because sometimes we talked about culture as a challenge. We talk about sometimes age as a challenge. Clarine just did this fabulous thing on LinkedIn as a part of I think it's a create a CAP program, where, exploring LinkedIn for those 50 and above.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know,
Oh, I
we,
love that.
we're really looking at this from so many different angles, whether
Yeah.
it's our environment, whether it's work situations.
True.
You may be the employee and, looking to become the employer,
Yeah.
or the dreamer looking to become the team leader. You may be in direct sales.
Yeah.
But I think
Yeah.
just the reminder to give yourself the permission to explore in safety, it kind of answered a lot of questions that I had. And the ones that I really loved was, because I was an explorer, I could ask tons of questions, but it really helped me understand the times when I don't raise my hand.
Mm.
And that was the part in the our chart, was to really help us get an eye towards the discernment. There are times when we show up and we're fully articulate. There are
Yeah.
times when we're just sitting back, a little bit more reserved.
Yeah.
And I think in the chart, that really
Yeah.
helped me learn how to trust that, what I'm now calling the choice of the voice. You
I
know,
love that. I love that.
sometimes we show up with our inside voice.
Yeah.
Sometimes it can appear to others to be our outside voice.
Yeah.
Sometimes it can appear to be no voice.
Yeah.
And but I really just want to thank you for that, in your gifts of just helping me look at my chart a little bit differently, because
Yeah.
it's like, I can't read regular maps. I can be graphically challenged and map challenged, especially if I'm behind the wheel or I'm watching
Mm.
Amazing Race. I always am very sympathetic towards the teams, the person who cannot read the map.
Yeah. 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 But that's why I love doing these things with the person present. Of course, I prepare the reading, but I love to talk about it so we can talk about the moments that really resonate. I love what you said about the choice of the voice, especially with an open throat center. It's really crucial that you understand how those dynamics work. So when the throat center is undefined, it's it's not that you cannot speak, because we can, but there's an inconsistent energy there. So one day you're like, a waterfall of words, and the next day you're very silent. And I have an open throat. So when I understood for the first time how the dynamics of an open throat work, I was like, now I get it, why one day I can talk forever and the next day I'm like silent. So there are so many aha moments in those readings and in working with the chart, that it's like exploring your own being, your own self, your own, how you're wired, how you operate. And it's fascinating. We are such fascinating creatures, and there is never an end to, for me anyway, to explore more of that.
I love that my throat is defined, and at times I'm rather quiet hanging out. I used to
Mm,
always say it was my introvert day, not a trained ambivert day where I was reaching for a mic, but it's
mm,
also a choice as a manifester
yeah,
of when I decide to
yeah,
show up,
yeah,
or whether I'm in a sharing mode,
yeah,
or as you would say, in an initiate mode, but
yeah,
a
yeah,
real good reminder that our energy comes from so many different
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. So, as a manifester, it's really crucial that we have the energy to speak. And if we don't have the energy as a manifester, then you can be very silent. Or it could be that you're very much in creator mode because your creative bursts come in bursts. It's not like a consistent thing that's going on for a manifester, but it's like, it's up and down. And when you're in a creative mode, you, as a manifester, you don't want to be disturbed. Don't want to be distracted. So you're not going to talk. You're going to create.
I love what you're saying. It's the reminder too that, as you would say, we have our personal energy sources or resources, but also, in some of the nine centers, there are the motors. I obviously, Nicoline, you're going to have to come back
Yeah,
so
I will.
we can pick your gems again. If there's a takeaway that you'd like to leave people with in terms of be yourself, what would that gem be that you'd like to leave them with?
Well, what I really would love people to leave them with is that there is no design that's better or worse or more preferred, or and each and every design is unique. And this is not like a, oh, let's hug and kiss and like a happy thing, but it's so important that we know how we're wired, because then we can navigate it, and then we can navigate life, we can navigate business. But if we keep on trying to be something that we're not, that's where burnout and stress and all of that starts happening. So whenever you want to make a change, start with knowing yourself. Start knowing yourself, and human design is just a great starting point for that. So don't look outside of yourself, go within. That's where the magic is. So, and I'm here for questions, and I would love to come back.
Oh, we definitely. I've already got the date in the back of my head. So please don't even think. And Catherine's laughing in the green room, but I really want to just thank you for joining us today, and to wish you smiles across the miles,
Yeah,
and and a toast just to thank you for joining us today, and
absolutely.
sharing your gems in
Yes,
such a wonderful way. And
my absolute pleasure.
everybody else, I hope you stay safe, stay well, stay inspired,
Yes.
stay in touch. Definitely reach out to Nicoline. She's got some amazing resources in the beautiful links that Catherine just shared in the chat and in her featured posts. And she's got great videos, and it looks like your bucket list this year is
Yeah,
amazing. So
it's
I
crazy,
definitely have to
isn't it?
invite you back to talk about that, because she's got amazing posts with
Yeah.
some fabulous energy. But
Yes,
I hope you all have a magnificent day. And thank you so much for joining us today. Take great care.
absolutely.
Be well.
Great. Thanks.
Thank you.